Hey, what happened?
I don't know.
Did you just come home?
Yeah, I was down the street walking my dog and they shot him.
That's what 22-year-old Alyssa Blackburn told deputies after finding her boyfriend, Jesse Gagin, bleeding out on the living room floor. She claimed it was a drive-by, a random hit, but she never walked the dog. She was there. She watched it happen. And what detectives would uncover next, a love triangle, a setup, and a gunman who said, "I ain't gonna shoot you," as he opened fire, would expose a plan far more twisted than anyone imagined. Where are you watching the video? Hit subscribe and like. October 29th, 2022, Medford Avenue, Pensacola, Florida. It started with a crack of gunfire in the distance. Neighbors on the 1100 block of Medford Avenue assumed it was just another drive-by. That kind of thing wasn't unheard of here. But by 2 p.m., it happened again, louder, closer, and this time, someone was screaming for help. When deputies arrived, they didn't walk into a crime scene. They stepped into a trap filled with lies, confusion, and the dying gasps of a young man named Jesse Gagin. Inside the small home, they found Jesse collapsed on the floor, his body riddled with bullets. He was barely conscious, struggling to breathe, his chest heaving as blood soaked into the carpet beneath him. "Help me! I can't breathe." He wasn't gone yet, but he was close. Deputy Tinch scanned the room. Glass was shattered, furniture overturned, and standing just outside the chaos was Alyssa Blackburn, 22 years old, barefoot and crying. "What happened?" "I don't know. I was walking my dog, and when I came back, he was like this." Her hands were shaking. Her eyes darted. Something about her seemed off. But in moments like this, people break down in all kinds of ways. Tinch tried to keep calm, but her story had cracks from the beginning. When asked who called 911, Alyssa hesitated. "Was it you?" "No, I think it was someone else." It was a woman's voice. "Was it you or not?" Okay, I called. "I was just scared." That's when the first red flag dropped, because her voice was already on the dispatch recording, and she'd lied about it, not even 5 minutes in. And something else didn't sit right with the deputy. Alyssa said she'd only just moved in 2 days ago, but this house looked lived in. Family photos on the wall, food in the pantry, her clothes in the back bedroom. So why lie? As paramedics rushed Jesse to the ambulance, trying to keep his lungs from collapsing, officers circled the home, trying to understand what had happened. Blood spatter on the walls, bullet holes across the living room. No sign of forced entry. This wasn't a random hit. Jesse had been targeted. And the more Alyssa spoke, the more suspicious it got. "Before you left to walk the dog, was he okay?" "Yeah, he was just in the room watching TV." "And nobody else was in the house?" "No, just us. I don't even know whose house this is. I just got here." But she didn't know whose house it was. She lived here with Jesse. And according to neighbors, she'd been around for weeks, if not longer. Down the block, deputies started canvassing for witnesses. And that's when the story broke wide open. I saw a black Toyota Camry pull up earlier. 2 guys got out, one white, one black. One of them had a gun. I saw it. They went inside, and then boom, boom, boom. Shots fired. White guy comes out yelling. I told him not to play with me. Another neighbor confirmed it. The white won. He had the gun. I seen him run back to the car. The Camry's always over there. They hang around that house all the time. These weren't strangers. These men knew Jesse. And they knew Alyssa. Inside the house, Alyssa's sobbing was now full-on wailing. She was in hysterics, screaming, collapsing. But it didn't feel real. More like a performance. And then one line changed everything. She was in that F*** ING house. One deputy muttered. "What?" "I just got a witness who saw a white male run out the front door, not the back. So she had to be inside. She said she just got home, but that doesn't line up." That's when they knew. Alyssa had never walked her dog. She was there the entire time, and now they needed to figure out, was she just a terrified girlfriend caught in a crossfire? Or had she led her boyfriend into a deadly setup? What no one knew yet is that Jesse was about to talk, and what he told paramedics before slipping unconscious would spark a full-scale murder investigation. The house on Medford Avenue had seen better days. Peeling paint, cigarette burns on the couch, stains on the floor that didn't come out with bleach. To the neighbors, it was a trap house, a known spot. People came and went. Loud music, angry arguments, car engines at 2 a.m. But for the past couple weeks, it had been mostly quiet, until Jesse Gagin got shot. As deputies sealed off the perimeter, they began walking the house. Carefully, the front window had been shattered, but the shards lay outside on the porch, not inside. That meant the glass wasn't broken during a drive-by. It was shattered from within. Somebody inside had shot the window, or deliberately smashed it to sell the lie. And standing by herself, surrounded by broken glass and red-blue strobes of police lights, was Alyssa Blackburn, still crying, still swearing she had no idea what happened. Deputy Davidson didn't buy it. "So, you're telling me you were out walking your dog?" "Yes." "And you came home and Jesse was just lying there?" "Yes." "Was the door locked?" "Yeah. I tried the front. Then I kicked the back in." Another inconsistency. The back door showed no signs of forced entry. Not even a bent hinge. No footprints on the frame. But Alyssa kept spinning the same version of events. "We only just moved in 2 days ago. I don't even really know the people who live here." That's when Davidson made a subtle play. If I ask if someone lives here and you say no, and they do live here, why would you lie? A beat. Her eyes widened. "Well, okay. There is someone else who stays here. Dud. He sleeps on the couch sometimes, but he's barely around." Now the truth was starting to trickle out. One of Jesse's roommates had been living in the house with them. Not only that, he might have been there during the shooting. Suddenly, Alyssa's timeline was completely unraveling. Deputies pressed harder. "So, how many people live in this house exactly?" "I don't know. Like I said, people come and go." "Was anyone else here this morning?" "No. I mean, maybe Dud. I don't know. I woke up, called my mom, then I left with the dog." Then she paused. "Too long. There's another guy, too. He doesn't stay here often. He's trying to get clean. I think his name starts with AJ. He was supposed to be with a girl in a hotel last night. They were finally getting names, faces, pieces, but the clock was ticking. Jesse had been rushed to the ER in critical condition. He was barely clinging to life. If he didn't make it, this wasn't just a shooting. It was murder. And Alyssa? She'd be the only person who could help, or the one who made it all happen. That's when the radio call came in. "We've got a neighbor," says he saw the whole thing. Deputy Brissett walked the block and spotted an older man leaning on his gate. The neighbor looked shaken. "Pale, you hear the shots?" "4 of them, around 10 this morning. Then I saw a black car pull up again later. A Camry. White boy and black boy inside." "Did you see anyone with a gun?" "Yeah, the white one. He had it in his hand when he came out. He was yelling. I told him not to play with me. Then they jumped in the car and peeled off. That was it. Confirmation. This wasn't random. This wasn't a mistake. The shooter knew Jesse, knew where he lived, walked right in, finished the job. And worst of all, Alyssa lied about everything. Even her mother, now on the scene trying to calm her down, accidentally gave away a detail she shouldn't have known. Alyssa was picked up earlier this morning. Black car. Didn't have any emblems. Maybe a Toyota. Could have been spray painted. That was the same car witnesses saw. The black Toyota Camry. Wait, your daughter was in that car? Yeah. A friend of Jesse's picked her up. She went to go walk the dog after that. So Alyssa wasn't walking the dog alone. She was driven somewhere by one of Jesse's acquaintances. And whoever was driving the Camry might be the same person who came back to shoot him. And maybe, just maybe, she knew exactly what was going to happen. Deputies decided to stop playing nice. They took Alyssa down to the station. No more chaotic interviews on the lawn. No more screaming fits in the street. They needed answers. Fast. And once she was in the interrogation room, alone with her mother, the real Alyssa began to show. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She whispered one cold, calculated phrase. "There's a camera in here. Don't touch me. Don't say nothing stupid." The mask was starting to slip. The room was cold. Concrete walls, metal chairs, a clock ticking loud enough to cut through the silence. Alyssa sat next to her mother, arms folded, eyes scanning the corners. "There's a camera in here," she muttered. "Don't touch me. Don't say anything stupid." The crying was gone. So were the trembling hands. Alyssa Blackburn, the hysterical girlfriend at the crime scene, was gone. What sat in that interrogation room now was someone entirely different. Alyssa had flipped a switch, and detectives knew they had to flip one of their own. Investigator Martinez stepped into the room first, calm, composed. "You've only been there for 2 days?" "Yeah, we just moved in." "Who all lives there?" "Just me and Jesse." "Kinda. And sometimes Dud, and maybe one other guy." The names kept changing. The timeline shifted every time she opened her mouth. But Martinez wasn't here to debate details. He was here to observe how she handled the pressure. And she was cracking. First, she claimed she was alone in the house. Then she admitted there were other people staying there. Then she said a friend picked her up. Then she didn't know the guy's name. Then, without warning, she described the exact car the witnesses had already identified. It was black, no emblems, 4 doors, looked spray-painted. Old Toyota, maybe a Camry. Right there, that was it. The same black Camry that fled the scene, spotted by multiple neighbors. She had just placed herself inside that vehicle before the shooting. Despite swearing up and down, she had no idea who was involved. But then came the real slip. She started talking about Jesse. He doesn't like people knowing where he stays because of what he does. Martinez raised an eyebrow. "What does he do?" "You know, he sells, well, drugs. Allegedly." That word, allegedly, wasn't a slip. It was strategy. Alyssa was choosing her words like someone who'd sat in an interrogation room before. Someone who knew when to be vague, and when to pretend she didn't know anything at all. She went on. "Jesse don't let me be alone at the house. He don't trust people. But the guy in the car, my brother knew him. Jesse knew him. I didn't really know him like that." Now she was distancing herself. Again, the man who picked her up, the man likely behind the trigger, was a friend of a friend, someone she barely knew. Yet according to Jesse's roommates, this guy had been around often. And Alyssa, she'd spent time with him. More time than she admitted. And his name was about to surface. A second roommate, previously unreachable, finally returned a text. Investigators brought him in quietly. He walked in with his head low, visibly nervous. But the moment he sat down, he gave them everything. It was Jacob Colville. That's the white dude. He's the one who shot Jesse. "You're sure?" 100%. I saw it with my own eyes." "And who was the other guy?" "Don't know him. Black male. Never seen him before." Detectives were stunned. Jacob Lee Colville, 29 years old, known felon, tattoos, prior arrests, and, according to a roommate, he had shown up with his 2 kids in the car, then walked into the house and executed Jesse point blank. But what he said next shattered any doubt about Alyssa's role. It was over a girl. Over her. Alyssa? What do you mean? Colville was obsessed with her. Jesse was dating her. There was tension. Everyone knew it. A classic love triangle. Except this one had a body count. The roommate continued. As soon as Alyssa came outside and told them Jesse was inside, they walked in like they knew what they were there to do. No hesitation. Searched the house. Found Jesse. Then gunshots. According to him, Jesse didn't even fight back. He pleaded. I heard Colville say, I ain't gonna shoot you. I ain't gonna shoot you. And then he shot him. Over and over. Alyssa was there. She watched it happen. She'd even been seen earlier holding a gun in the house on surveillance. Not long after, she walked her dog like nothing happened. It was the act of someone used to covering up chaos. And now, detectives had enough to move in. They tracked down the second roommate, the one Alyssa said wasn't home. He confirmed everything. Yeah, she told him Jesse was in the back room, and I saw her walk into the house with a gun in her hand. The stories lined up. The pieces clicked. Jacob Colville wasn't just some jealous ex. He was invited in. He was armed, and Alyssa had unlocked the door. Detectives now had witness testimony, surveillance footage, and matching descriptions from neighbors. All signs pointed to one undeniable truth. Alyssa Blackburn wasn't an innocent bystander. She was part of the plan. But this case was far from over. There was still one more major break to come. Because when they finally tracked down Colville's accomplice, the man who provided the murder weapon, he wouldn't just confess. He'd burn the whole story down. 3 days after Jesse Gagan's murder, detectives sat face-to-face with Lawrence Bonner Jr. The man believed they had provided the gun that killed him. They had found him exactly where they expected, hiding in his house, avoiding calls, keeping his head down. But there were 2 problems for Lawrence. 1, they had surveillance footage showing him at the crime scene. 2, they knew he didn't pull the trigger, but he helped the man who did. And that meant he had one shot, talk or go down for murder. The detectives didn't waste time. The interview started with a warning. You literally have one opportunity to talk about this, one investigator said, voice sharp, because right now, you're in this. And if you stay silent, you're going down just like the shooter. Bonner leaned back, sweating. He looked tired, cornered. All right, he said, I'll tell you what happened. And just like that, the floodgates opened. What Lawrence Bonner told him would confirm every suspicion and expose a deadly triangle Alyssa had carefully tried to deny. I don't even know Jesse like that, he said. I just got in the car with Jake. He said we were going to talk to someone. That's it. Who's Jake? Jacob Colville. He's the one who shot that dude. Jesse. Why? Because of that girl. Alyssa. Bonner said the words like it was obvious, like everyone already knew. Jacob was obsessed with her, like real obsessed. She played him and Jesse against each other. Man, it was toxic, and I guess Jesse disrespected him. Or something. I don't even know. But detectives weren't just here for gossip. They were here for murder charges. And the next few things Bonner said sealed his fate. Jacob asked me to bring a gun. So you brought the weapon? Yeah. I didn't know he was going to kill the guy. That's called felony murder. If you bring the gun used in a homicide, you're not just an accessory. You're a killer too. And Bonner wasn't done. He started describing the moments before the shooting in chilling detail. We pulled up to the house. Alyssa came out. She said the windows were busted or something. She knocked on the door, didn't get an answer. Then she went back to the car. Said he's inside. Then she walked the dog, like it was nothing. Next thing I know, Jake goes in, walks straight down the hallway, finds Jesse. Boom, boom. He shot him while he was standing, then while he was down. Detectives leaned in, and Alyssa, she didn't scream. She didn't stop it. She knew exactly what was going to happen. Bonner was adamant. Alyssa knew, and not only that, she was in the car with him beforehand. She walked him into that house. She set it up, and now, detectives had confirmation from one of the 3 involved. 2 more remained. While Bonner sat in holding, the Escambia County Sheriff's Office launched a full manhunt for the shooter, Jacob Lee Colville. And a few days later, they got a hit. Jacob had been spotted in Eustis, Florida, 500 miles away, driving erratically, wearing a wig and sunglasses, disguised, armed. An officer recognized him during a traffic stop. A quick check confirmed the truth. It was Colville. In the car were a loaded handgun and a stash of drugs. He barely resisted. I don't regret it, he said to one of the arresting officers. That was all they needed. The shooter was in custody. The supplier was in jail. And now, they turned back to the person who started it all. Detectives issued a warrant for Alyssa Blackburn's arrest. They didn't go looking far. She was still in town, hiding in plain sight, acting like she had nothing to do with it. But when the cuffs went on, she didn't fight, didn't cry, didn't scream. Why am I being arrested? She asked. For the murder of Jesse Gagan. I didn't pull the trigger. But you were in the house. You told them where he was. You walked him in. You lied about all of it. That makes you part of it. Back in the interrogation room, detectives faced Bonner one last time. They had one more thing to show him. The surveillance footage from the house. A timestamp. A flash of movement. And then the entire shooting plays out on screen. No way to deny it. Bonner watched himself in the video. Then he pointed to the moment that haunted him the most. That part, when Jesse drops the gun and Jake hands me his... Yeah, that's when I knew it was over. Everything was over. But detectives had one last move to make. Confirm exactly what role Alyssa played, in her own words, or from the mouths of those closest to her. Because the next witness would be the one who lived in that house with her. And he saw everything. He had been in the house the entire time. Not out front. Not down the street. Not watching through a window. Inside. On the couch. Just feet away. And now, days after the murder of Jesse Gagin, detectives brought him in. The second roommate. The one Alyssa claimed wasn't there. The one she said had gone off with some girl to get a hotel room. She lied. Because he saw everything. He sat down across from the investigator. His voice was quiet. Flat. His face pale. Eyes red. Like he hadn't slept since the shooting. And the first words out his mouth, "That girl, Alyssa, she set it all up." The detective didn't flinch. He just leaned in, walked me through it. From the beginning. The roommate nodded. We were all in the living room. Me, Jesse, Alyssa. She was acting strange, on edge, kept pacing, kept checking her phone. Then she left the house, walked outside for a minute, and when she came back, she had a gun. Pause. Alyssa had the gun? Yeah, she was holding it in her hand, like she was ready for something. Surveillance footage later confirmed it. Alyssa, walking through the house, carrying a firearm, just minutes before the murder. That alone destroyed her claim that she had just come back from walking the dog. The roommate continued. A couple minutes later, that black Camry pulled up. I recognized the dude with her, Jake, and some other guy I didn't know. They walked up, and she told them, straight up, "He's in the back." Like she was delivering him. Those were his words. Delivering him. They didn't ask questions. They didn't knock. They didn't hesitate. They just walked through the house, real quiet, like they'd done this before. Then I heard it. Boom. Boom. Jake's voice. "I ain't gonna shoot you." And then he did. According to this witness, Jesse had trusted Jacob Colville. Maybe not fully, but enough to believe he wasn't in danger. That made the betrayal even more vicious. Even after he went down, the roommate said Colville kept shooting. He walked up to Jesse on the floor and finished him. There were no arguments, no struggle, no chaos, just a calm, calculated execution. And the person who gave the shooters access? Alyssa. "I couldn't believe it," the roommate said. She just stood there. She knew what was coming. "I thought Jesse was her boyfriend. I thought she loved him, but she set him up, and then she walked her dog like nothing happened." Detectives asked the next question carefully. Why do you think she did it? Power, control, manipulation. I think she liked having two guys fight over her. She just pushed it too far. But there was another layer, something darker. Jesse didn't trust people, he said. He always kept the blinds closed, always moved quietly. But with her, he was soft. He let her in, and she used that to kill him. The investigators now had everything they needed. Eyewitness testimony from two separate roommates. Surveillance video of Alyssa holding a gun inside the house. Phone and text evidence showing ties between Alyssa and Colville. Multiple lies on record from Alyssa's own interview. A full confession from Lawrence Bonner, who brought the murder weapon. And finally, the cold-blooded quote from Jacob Colville himself. "I don't regret it." Still, the detectives asked one final question of the roommate. Did she try to stop them? "No," he said without hesitation. She opened the door. That moment became the case's most powerful metaphor. Because Alyssa didn't just unlock a front door that day. She unlocked the events that led to a man's execution. She opened the door to murder. And now, with all three involved in custody, the case was shifting into its final phase, prosecution. But before Alyssa would face a court, she'd face the truth. Because when detectives confronted her with the footage, the gun in her hand, the lies, the witnesses, she wouldn't defend herself. She would snap. They didn't slam the evidence on the table. They didn't yell or call her a liar. They just played the video. Alyssa Blackburn, 22 years old, visible on camera, walking through Jesse Gagan's home, a firearm in her hand. Her body language calm, focused, not hysterical, not confused, not scared, and certainly not innocent. Detectives let the silence stretch as the screen went black. Alyssa sat across from them, chewing the inside of her cheek, eyes flicking toward her mother sitting beside her. No one said a word. So finally, she broke the silence. I tried to save him. But no one in the room believed that, because Alyssa hadn't called for help, hadn't stopped the shooter, hadn't tried to stop the bleeding. She'd lied, over and over again. And now that the lies were exposed, she shifted to the next card in the deck, the victim. Y'all don't understand. Jesse was into things. Bad things. He was dealing. He owed people money. That wasn't my life. That wasn't supposed to be my life. The detective didn't respond. Just sat still. I'm the one who tried to make him change. I'm the only one who cared when he overdosed. I'm the one who called the cops when he couldn't breathe. Then her voice cracked, not in grief, but in frustration. Nobody else gave a SH*T about him. I did. But they weren't here to hear about Jesse's drug use. They were here to figure out how he ended up with 7 bullets in his body, and why Alyssa led the killer right to him. You walked him into the house, the detective said, calmly. No, I didn't. We have you on video, holding a gun. That wasn't for them. That was to protect myself. From Jesse? No. From what I thought was coming. That line hit the air like a spark. What did you think was coming? I don't know, okay? I knew something was wrong. Jesse was acting weird. So you told Colville he was inside? I didn't tell anyone anything. We have 2 witnesses who say otherwise. That's when Alyssa snapped. She slammed her fist on the table. The chair scraped loudly as she stood. Y'all trying to say this is my fault? I didn't shoot him. I didn't pull the trigger. I wasn't the one who lost it. The detective didn't flinch. He stayed seated, calm, measured. No, you didn't shoot him, but you brought the gun in the house. You told him where Jesse was. You opened the door. Alyssa's breathing was ragged now. Her mother put a hand on her arm to calm her, but Alyssa ripped it away. Don't touch me. I told you not to touch me. Then, quieter, you don't get it. They were going to do it anyway. Jesse made people mad. I just didn't want to be in the middle. But she was never in the middle. She was on one side, the wrong side. From that moment on, detectives didn't need to say anything more. Alyssa wasn't going to confess. Not directly. But every word out of her mouth buried her deeper. She lied about walking the dog. She lied about not knowing Colville. She lied about who was inside the house. She lied about when she left, when she came back, and what happened in between. And now, she was blaming Jesse for his own murder. As the detective prepared to wrap up the interview, he gave her one last chance. Why not tell the truth? Why lie about something like this? Alyssa sat back down. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Because if I told the truth, they'd come after me next. But it was too late for that. Everyone was already in custody. Jacob Colville, arrested with a loaded gun, confessed with no remorse. I don't regret it. Lawrence Bonner, the gun supplier, admitted his part and confirmed Alyssa's involvement. And now 2 roommates had testified that Alyssa opened the door and handed Jesse over like a sacrifice. Hours after the interview, detectives approached Alyssa in her holding cell. They had one more piece of information for her. Jesse Gagan didn't make it. She paused, blinked, then let out a gasp and crumpled to the floor, sobbing, screaming. No. I tried to save him. I called the cops. I tried to stop the bleeding. But it was too late. And for detectives watching from behind the glass, it didn't feel real. It felt like a performance. Because every time Alyssa cried, someone else paid for it. And Jesse Gagin had paid the ultimate price. It wasn't just a killing. It was an execution. And now it was a cover-up. Jesse Gagin was dead. Alyssa Blackburn was in custody. Jacob Colville had been arrested. Lawrence Bonner had confessed. But the detectives knew something was missing. The gun, the getaway car, and anything that could physically tie all three suspects to crime. That's when a call came in from a patrol unit outside 11 Mile Creek, near the Mobile Highway Bridge. We got a vehicle burned down to the frame. And not just any vehicle, a black Toyota Camry. The fire had done its job. The car was almost unrecognizable. No plates, no emblems, no VIN on the dash. Just twisted metal and melted rubber. But there were enough scraps left behind, tools, seatbelt hardware, wiring patterns, to confirm it was the same Camry neighbors saw fleeing the shooting. Colville's car, the murder car, deliberately torched. But burning a car isn't like burning paper. Even without license plates or an ID tag, trained investigators know where to look. Inside the car's trunk, forensic techs found a small corner of non-incinerated upholstery, blackened but not destroyed. Lab tests would later show that traces of gunshot residue, matching the ballistics pattern of Jesse's murder. They were sloppy. They didn't destroy the evidence. They just lit it on fire and hoped for the best. Meanwhile, detectives doubled back to Bonner, the man who had supplied the weapon. Now that the car was found, they needed to know if the gun was still in play. Bonner didn't hesitate. I don't know where it is. Probably threw it in the river. Jake said it had to go. You gave him the gun? Yeah, he asked for it. I thought he was just trying to scare Jesse. I didn't think he'd use it. But Bonner wasn't off the hook. Because later that same day, after the shooting, he made another mistake. He helped Jacob get rid of the gun. The two drove out west, near the Pensacola Bay area. One witness claimed they saw a man matching Bonner's description walking along the fishing pier near dusk, carrying a long object wrapped in a towel. They didn't report it at the time. But now, it matched perfectly. Back in the interrogation room, detectives showed Bonner a picture. This look familiar? Yeah, that's where we dumped it. Why toss the gun and not the girl? What you mean? Alyssa, you're protecting her. Nah, man. Bonner scoffed. She knew what this was. She's the one that said where Jesse was. Detectives leaned in. So you're saying this was premeditated? It wasn't random. That's for damn sure. It all made sense now. Step 1. Alyssa lures Jesse into a false sense of security. Step 2. Colville shows up, acting like it's just another visit. Step 3. Alyssa tells her where Jesse is and walks away. Step 4. The gun goes off. Jesse dies. Step 5. The Camry disappears. Step 6. Bonner and Colville torch the car. Step 7. The gun gets tossed into water. It was all mapped out, planned, precise, personal. And for what? A love triangle? Drugs? Control? Probably all three. By this point, the prosecution was building their timeline. Each suspect's movement had been cross-referenced through witness accounts, phone records, and digital pings. Alyssa's phone, though she swore she didn't remember where it was, had pinged off a cell tower less than 100 yards from the house at the exact time of the shooting. She never left. She never walked the dog. She never tried to stop it. And even after the car was burned and the gun was gone, there was still one more piece of evidence no one expected. Surveillance DVR. Earlier, one of the roommates had quietly mentioned, the DVR still works. It recorded the whole thing. And it did, despite the chaos. Despite the attempts to erase it. Despite the fire. The security camera inside the house had captured the entire event. Alyssa, walking calmly through the living room with a gun. Colville, entering with Bonner, pacing toward the hallway. Jesse, rising from his seat. Colville pulling the trigger. Jesse dropping. More shots. Blood splattering against the wall. The moment Colville bends down and fires one last time. Undeniable. Unforgivable. The case that started with a lie about walking the dog had now become a capital murder trial, backed by hard evidence, eyewitnesses, and confessions. The attempt to burn the truth had failed. and the fire had only made the smoke more visible. In the final moments of Jesse Gagan's life, everything slowed down. Gunshots had ripped through his chest and abdomen. His body was crumpled on the floor. Blood was seeping beneath him, soaking into the carpet, while the room he thought was his home, echoed with silence. The shooter was standing above him, calm, collected, still armed, and just a few feet away, almost frozen in place, stood Alyssa Blackburn, the woman Jesse called his girlfriend. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She just watched. And in that moment, as Jesse struggled to breathe, to speak, to comprehend what was happening, hers was the last face he saw. According to a roommate who witnessed it all, Jesse had been confused more than afraid. It was as if he couldn't process what was happening. Couldn't believe someone he trusted, Jacob Colville, a man who'd been in his home before, was the one firing the bullets. I heard Jesse yell something like, "Bro, what are you doing?" the roommate said. But Colville just kept pulling the trigger. Even after Jesse fell, even after he was bleeding out, he fired more. Alyssa didn't move. She just stared. And that's the part that haunted the witness the most. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She just looked at him like she knew it was supposed to happen. Later, when detectives asked the witness if Jesse said anything to Alyssa in those final seconds, the answer hit like a punch to the gut. "Yeah," he said. He looked at her and said, "Why? Why would you do this to me?" It was unclear if Alyssa responded, but according to the forensics team, Jesse was still alive, barely, when paramedics arrived. He wasn't able to speak by then. His lungs were filling with blood. But one paramedic would later report that Jesse shook his head, no, when asked if he knew who shot him, then nodded yes when they asked if Alyssa knew who did. Even with his dying breath, he tried to protect her, and at the same time pointed the finger. Inside the courtroom weeks later, this detail would shatter the jury. The medical examiner confirmed Jesse died of multiple gunshot wounds, 2 of which would have been fatal on their own. He suffered internal hemorrhaging in the chest cavity, the Meade testified. The pressure caused both lungs to partially collapse. Survival time was estimated at under 10 minutes. And yet, in those 10 minutes, Jesse used the little strength he had to try to speak to Alyssa, to ask her why, to try to understand how the person who held him, who laughed with him, who lived with him, had just served him up to die. Back at the house, investigators walked through the blood-soaked crime scene one final time. The bullet holes in the wall, the broken window, the overturned furniture, and the couch Jesse had been sitting on, still slightly indented where his body had slumped over. Everything told a story, but the most chilling reminder? A pair of dog leashes by the door. Untouched. Alyssa never walked the dog. She walked Jesse into an ambush, and then walked away. From her jail cell, Alyssa began writing letters, most of which never left the facility. But one letter was intercepted, addressed to a jailcie, presumed to be Jacob Lee Colville. In it, she wrote, "They're trying to pin it all on me. You know that wasn't the plan. You said he'd be okay. You said we'd scare him and leave. Now he's dead, and I'm in hell." She signed it with a heart. The prosecution would later argue this wasn't remorse. It was strategy, a final attempt to control the narrative, like she tried to control Jesse, Colville, Bonner, the story. But the truth didn't need manipulation. The truth was simple. Jesse Gagan died looking up at the person who set him up, begging her to explain why, and she never answered. By the summer of 2024, the Escambia County Courthouse was bracing for one of its most emotionally charged cases in years. A case not built on speculation or rumor, but on surveillance video, confessions, eyewitnesses, and a dying man's final look of betrayal. 3 defendants, 1 murder, and a mountain of evidence that told a single unshakable story. Jesse Gagan had been set up, shot down, and left to die. And now, the people who did it would face justice. Jacob Lee Colville, the shooter, Lawrence Bonner Jr., the supplier, Alyssa Blackburn, the architect, each of them charged with first-degree premeditated murder, each looking at life in prison. No parole, but only one had the guts to face it head-on, the shooter, Jacob Colville. Jacob was the first to stand trial. He didn't cry, didn't plead insanity, didn't show remorse. In fact, his only words during pretrial were a quote that would rattle the entire room. "I don't regret it." Prosecutors presented their case with cold, surgical precision. The security footage showing Colville entering the home, the murder weapon traced back to Bonner, the burned Camry matching witness descriptions, the confession from Bonner himself, and finally, the testimonies from both roommates, placing Colville at the center of it all. One witness repeated the shooter's final words to Jesse, "I ain't gonna shoot you," and then he did. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty, first-degree murder, life in prison, no possibility of parole. Jacob didn't blink. The supplier, Lawrence Bonner Jr. Bonner's trial came next, and while he didn't pull the trigger, the law didn't care. He provided the gun, helped torch the vehicle, and most importantly, knew what was about to happen. And even worse, he stuck around to watch. Bonner's defense tried to argue that he was pressured by Colville, that he was a reluctant passenger, that he thought the whole thing was just a bluff. But then the prosecution played the interrogation tape. "Yeah, I gave him the gun. Yeah, I helped burn the car." Alyssa told him Jesse was inside. That sealed it. Bonner was convicted on all charges. Principal to first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, accessory after the fact. Sentencing would come later, but he was never going home again. The girl who opened the door, Alyssa Blackburn. Alyssa's trial was always going to be different because she didn't fire the weapon. She didn't bring the gun. She didn't drive the car. But she did everything else. And that's why the prosecution took their time with her case, crafting a narrative so airtight it didn't matter that she never pulled the trigger. Their opening statement hit like a hammer. She didn't shoot him. She just told the killer where to find him. She just walked out the door so she wouldn't have to hear the screams. Alyssa's defense strategy was shaky from the start. They tried to paint her as a confused young woman, caught in a storm between two dangerous men, a victim of control and manipulation, someone who never wanted Jesse dead, only scared. But then the prosecution began stacking the lies. She lied about walking the dog. She lied about who called 911. She lied about knowing the shooter. She lied about how long she'd lived in the house. She lied about the roommates. She lied on the night Jesse died. And she lied even after being shown the video. And then they showed the footage. There she was, walking calmly through the house, holding a gun. Then came the roommates. She told them where Jesse was. She opened the door. Then came the intercepted letter. "They're trying to pin it all on me. You said we'd scare him and leave." Then came her own words in the interview. "If I told the truth, they'd come after me next." And finally, the heartbreak, the paramedic's testimony. The final moment Jesse looked up at Alyssa and whispered, "Why would you do this to me?" The courtroom fell silent. During closing arguments, the prosecutor turned to the jury and delivered the final nail. She didn't have to shoot him to kill him. She just had to open the door. And Jesse Gagin paid for it with his life. The jury came back with their verdict. Guilty. Principal to first-degree murder. Alyssa collapsed in her chair, sobbing, but the tears came far too late. The judge denied bail. She was remanded back into custody. Permanently. Only sentencing remained. 3 people walked Jesse into death. 3 would never walk free again. But before the story ends, there's one more moment. A letter, written behind bars, meant for Jesse. 2 years after Jesse Gagin was murdered, justice had finally been served. Jacob Colville, life without parole. Lawrence Bonner Jr., convicted as an accomplice to murder, awaiting sentencing. Alyssa Blackburn, found guilty of orchestrating it all. But behind the concrete walls of the Escambia County Jail, Alyssa wasn't done talking. Because when investigators swept her cell during a routine inspection, they found something unexpected. A handwritten letter, folded into a tiny square, tucked behind a loose tile in the wall. And on the outside it said one word, Jesse. It wasn't dated. It wasn't signed. It was never meant to be mailed. But it was meant to be read. You always said I'd be the reason you die young. And I laughed. God, I laughed so hard when you said it. You never understood how scared I was of needing you, of how much I hated being soft. You broke through that, and then I hated you for it. I didn't know how to leave. I didn't know how to stay. So I made a mess and hoped you'd clean it up. But you didn't. You fought back, and they shot you for it. I heard you say something when you went down. I didn't want to hear it, so I walked outside. They say you looked at me. They say I was the last thing you saw. If that's true, I'm sorry. I really am. I didn't cry at the funeral. They wouldn't let me go. I tried to dream about you after, but I never do. Just the blood, the floor, the silence. I wish I could take it back. The jail staff handed the letter over to prosecutors. They debated whether to use it during sentencing, but ultimately they didn't, because this wasn't a confession. It wasn't closure. It was just more Alyssa saying too much, too late for the wrong reasons. Jesse Gagan was 26 years old when he died. A son, a brother, a man in recovery, trying to escape the life that had dragged him down. He'd just moved into a new home. He was planning a future, and the person he trusted most put a gun in the killer's hand and told him exactly where to find him. Jesse's family didn't speak much at the sentencing, but his mother said one thing before leaving the courtroom. We can live without justice, but we can't live without him. Alyssa Blackburn now sits in a Florida state prison, awaiting her formal sentencing. Jacob Colville will die behind bars. Lawrence Bonner is still awaiting final judgment, but he already knows the outcome. 3 people tried to erase Jesse Gagan, but justice remembered him. And in the end, no matter what she wrote, Alyssa couldn't rewrite the truth.